First of all, I'd like to thank Seizan Roshi and Choa for his direct invitation to be here with you today. I also like to thank the Sweetwater Zen Center community for showing up and allowing me to spend this time with you. I would also like to thank my teacher, Koho Vincenilla, for guiding me all these many years. And I'd also like to thank his teacher, Parang Jerry Larkin, who founded Still Point Zen Buddhist Temple in Detroit. So it's always wonderful to spend this time here with you. Many of you may remember that I used to live out that way, and that my connection to Sweetwater is through the services they provided to the local prisons as I was doing my time as related to a life of addiction and finding my way out of that with their help, Sweetwater's help, this practice of ours, Zen Buddhism, and kind of relearning how to take better care of my life than previously. You may also remember that usually when I come to speak or I'm invited to speak to people, I kind of have a similar theme repeatedly. And I usually emphasize the importance of having a regular meditation practice, sitting meditation practice. Let's just call it Zazen for now. So a person might say to themselves, so if that's so important for you, Jeong, why? Why? Why practice Zazen? Why practice sitting still, sitting quietly, just being, allowing the body to breathe? Well, there are other practices in Buddhism, and I'm not here to knock any other paths or methods. But from my own experience, coming from the depths of addiction, incarceration, homelessness, this practice has been the foundation of my recovery, return to sanity, and sustainable balance in my life. In my opinion, this practice of sitting silently is a gateway. It's a gateway to clear depths of spiritual understanding. It's a gateway to the depths of building and sustaining a practice, a spiritual practice. It is also the gateway to cultivating a practical way to live one's life on the day-to-day as we go about our usual business and our concerns, our relationships, our ups and our downs. So I guess in saying that, it's not just about sitting on the cushion and staying there all day. It's sitting on the cushions to cultivate something that we carry with us throughout the day. If it were just about sitting on the cushion and finding some sort of blissed out experience for an hour or half an hour, it wouldn't be very practical or useful. And for me, this practice of ours, Buddhism, Zen, is about the practical application it has for our lives each and every day as we learn to take care of ourselves. It is a gateway that helps us navigate the 10,000 sorrows and the 10,000 joys. It helps us to navigate these things in a way that embodies wisdom, compassion. It's not superficial, it has depth. Also, this practice of ours teaches us about investigation. Investigation with curiosity, and it teaches us to look deeper into our own lives and live them in a way that is not just surface level. Perhaps some of the things that we might encounter as we practice meditation and go about the business of living our daily lives, and we look with a sincere intention to see beneath the surface of what it means to be a human being, to live our lives in these days. And perhaps there are a few things that we might come across in this exploration. Maybe one of them could be, as relates to Buddhism, this practice, we can discover the middle way, which is kind of an umbrella for the Buddha's discovery, enlightenment, as he left a life of luxury, entitlement, to go on a spiritual journey, exploration to find the end of suffering. And he took it to a point of extremely denying the body of food to the point where he almost died. And in my understanding, having experienced both luxury, deprivation, he came to the understanding that the truest way for us to live our lives and walk towards the end of suffering is the middle way. Letting go of extremes, I guess a person could say. Perhaps another thing that we might encounter as we investigate and look deeper into the nature of things, we might come face to face and recognize our own true nature. Perhaps that could mean our higher self. And perhaps a third element, and there's probably much more than these three, but I'm just bringing these three to you this morning. And perhaps another one that we could come across as we investigate, as we look deeper into our lives quietly, with sincerity, with an open mind, with curiosity, without judgment, which takes a clear, calm mind, something that's cultivated in sitting meditation practice. Perhaps another element that we can come across as we investigate this and live this and look deeply is we could learn to reflect a life of gratitude. I say reflect a life of gratitude because this reflection aims both inwards and outwards. Gratitude. Last year, 2023, was a bit challenging for me physically. Um, I consider myself a guy who likes to do laps around the park, my local park, come home, work out, that sort of thing. But in the fall of last year, I started having difficulty with my knee, some pain. And it got to the point where I could no longer jog, which I kind of identified as a jogger. But because of my knee, I could no longer jog. And it gradually got worse. Uh, Went to visit my wife's family in another country, Switzerland, and we like to take walks in the woods, along the rivers, spend time in nature. I got halfway to our destination, I had to turn around because my knee would not allow me to even walk anymore. When I got home, uh, it progressed to the point where I had to use a cane. So when I reached that point, I thought to myself, well, maybe I should listen to my doctor and get that cortisol shot that they're trying to sell me. So I did. Um, this is about mid-November, if I'm remembering correctly. I did that with the hopes that I could return to some sort of normalcy for me, at least be able to walk without a cane. So I had the cortisone shot, let's say middle of November. The very next day, I was back to work. As many of you know, I'm a therapist, seeing clients for the most part virtually. And at midday, I decided, okay, I'm gonna take a little nap so I can refresh myself and continue to see clients for the rest of the day. As I was about to lay down, I felt kind of strange. What's going on here? Something feels unusual. As I stood up, my entire right side went dead, just dropped. Um, so I tried to kind of get out of the room, get to my phone, uh, and I remember thinking to myself, is this it? Is this how I'm going to go out? Middle of my workday, my arm just drops out, and it feels like the end. Well, fortunately, I kind of remember that this might be a stroke, and from what I understand is if you're having a stroke, you need to get to medical attention as soon as possible. Do not delay. Do not try to shake it off. So my mother, uh, fortunately, was nearby and came by and picked me up and took me to a major medical center uh, to be treated. I ended up in the hospital a little less than a week, more than I would have liked, less than a week. So while I'm in the hospital, I can't see my clients. I'm wondering what the outcome's going to be. I'm kind of in a position adjusting into this idea of this offer I was given to start teaching at Wayne State University, my alma mater. And here I am in a hospital. stroke. Well, fortunately, it was not long lasting, but it did lead to a series of medical appointments, more than my usual. It felt like I was seeing a doctor every week, maybe sometimes twice a week. But I followed the advice and had procedures done and got on medication and took it easy and then tried to recover and being, yeah, hoping that I could start my first day teaching in January. Um, and after all these many weeks of tests and such, I finally was getting to the end of a serious or major medical appointment. I think it was last week. Yeah, last week. The last one was a stress test. They had me get on a treadmill and all these wires hooked up to my chest. To kind of get a better idea if I needed assistance with my heart, maybe a device or something. I think I did pretty well on the test. I think the nurses there were, wow, that old guy, he's doing all right. You can stop now, Mr. Wilkins, if you want to. I said, okay, let's just give it a few more minutes. Not minutes, sorry, seconds. So that was like the final, you're done seeing doctors every week, every month kind of thing for me last week. But the morning before that appointment, I did go out to the park to follow my routine of briskly walking around, doing laps around that, and then coming home to do some exercises with some hand weights. Anyway, even though I had that test coming up, and as I was doing my laps around my local park, I felt the pain in my knee. Thinking to myself, what's this about? And there was a pain in my hip. I'm thinking, oh man, two pains. And I got a stress test here in about an hour? What's going on? Why me? And I had a realization. I suddenly thought to myself, I'm lucky to even be walking right now. I've encountered people who've had strokes, and I've heard people talk about their friends or relatives who've had strokes, and many of them are incapacitated for years. So I had to remember, I could have died. And in remembering, it brought forth a sense of gratitude. Gratitude to still be living, gratitude to still be mobile for the most part, gratitude to be able to spend this little bit of time with you folks. As I'm seeing it, that gratitude came out of kind of letting go of worries about what was ahead and regrets, sadness about what had happened. Being present with just being alive allowed me to be grateful. Now I'm asking myself, uh, what do I do with that insight, that flash of insight. I'm asking myself this out loud so that perhaps you can ask yourself, what do you do with your flashes of insight? I find it amazing how quickly we as human beings can forget. Sometimes I don't even remember that I've been to prison, that I had a stroke, or that I gave away decades of my life to addiction. I also find it amazing that human beings can believe almost anything. We look, we're paying attention to the clash of ideologies all around us. People wanting to kill each other for the information they contain in their heads and believe to be right and perhaps the only way. Their beliefs. Krishnamurti, one of the more influential Indian teachers in modern times, in my opinion, uh, once said, to paraphrase, um, the mind bears watching. Kind of like the way that a man or a person who's walking across a dark room knows that somewhere in the room there's a poisonous snake lurking. We need that sort of focus, attention in our lives to what we're thinking, what we're feeling, how we're acting. It's very important. To perhaps understand and prevent the harm that we are doing to ourselves and perhaps the harm that we might do to others in the way that we are living, in the way that we are being, speaking to people. I guess a person could say that this is kind of related to self-awareness or mindfulness, which is also related to our practice of just sitting still, getting to know oneself. Getting to know what it means to be a human being in this modern society. Perhaps it might also mean that we kind of see the importance of taking care of ourselves. In so doing, we take care of our lives. As we take care of our lives, we take care of our communities. As we take care of our communities, we take care of the planet, the animals, the plants, the resources, the waters. We take care of these things as our practice, as our gateway to deeper understanding and living a balanced life. Living this one precious life that we've been given. living it with wisdom, depth, compassion. We live it in a way that allows us to support this imperfect life unfolding perfectly, authentically. We don't have to be anyone else. We can be ourselves. This is not about changing ourselves into some ideal. It's about returning right here, discovering what's right here, seeing that we are enough with gratitude. So in closing, if you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit for you. I've got a couple of books here. One is, you've heard this before, the Sin Sing Ming. I've kind of read from it every once in a while. And then this is a translation of this book by this teacher. We're studying this in the One Sangha program that I facilitate, the 9-month program. We're studying this book right now. So, just to read a passage which, as you all, well, you may remember, those of you who've heard me read from this before, I enjoy it because it's kind of poetic, these verses. Don't waste your time in arguments and discussion, attempting to grasp the ungraspable. Each thing reveals the one manifest as all things. To live in this realization is not to worry about perfection or non-perfection. To put your trust in the heart-mind is to live without separation. And in this non-duality, you are one with your life source. Words. The way is beyond language. For in it, there is no yesterday, no tomorrow, no today. And so this one, as I said, he translates various pieces of these verses. This is not related directly to that which I just read to you, but it kind of stood out for me as a sketch of our practice, because at times it can seem impossible, our goal. We can be discouraged, lack motivation. But when we look deeper, we understand that this is our way. He says, practice is a foolish endeavor, like climbing a crystal mountain covered with oil. As you try to climb, you constantly slip back down. Nevertheless, you have no choice. You must continue climbing. You climb until you are completely exhausted. And suddenly you find yourself on the top of the mountain. But you realize you are still at the original spot. If you have not covered any distance at all, why was it necessary to climb the mountain? The answer is that before you started climbing, you did not realize that you were already on top of the mountain. If you're intelligent, you should go home right now. However, if you are willing to recognize being a fool, then take time to climb the mountain. Thank you very much for having me.